Welcome to the Andrew Elbrecht podcast. In this interview, I talked to Jason D. Smith, the author of a book called 7 8 Half, and also the one behind the movie, The Divine Wedding, which takes place in Elder Scrolls Online, a video game that he chooses to pioneer cinema within. Please enjoy this interview. Thank you for watching.
Wait, we have to start with a joke. Did you hear the one
Oh,
about the
we do.
pink elephant?
I mean, I've been to a restaurant called the Pink Elephant.
Well, if you say the word pink elephant, don't think about a pink elephant. It's impossible not to think about a pink elephant. And that's kind of like metaphysics, but it's
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah, no, psychology, the subliminal messaging and such.
Right, like whatever you say is actionable.
Mm. So,
Your voice has meaning.
so Jason, when did you specifically get into filming? Like, I know you made that video. You said that was in the 1990s.
94, 95 on High 8. One of the camera operators worked in movies, and the four musicians were from basically my fraternity that had been doing gigs around Seattle.
Okay.
And, and I kind of followed my friends around with a camera while going to video production school, and this particular music video was done with like barn door lights that I had rented from college,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
somebody's basement. It was quite a fun day.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm
So,
glad to have shared it with you.
what was that done with? That must have been really an interesting camera. Like, was it because it was pretty stable? So, how did you go about? Like, did they have what you
We
know
had
what I
two
mean?
cameras.
Okay.
If you notice, goes from shot to shot. One of the operators was, and I'm glad you asked that question because it's a curious
Yeah.
question. One of the operators was, as I said, from the movie industry. He actually worked on A-list movie, and I just met him through a friend of a friend. Very amiable. I try to make friends with people
Yeah.
as opposed to enemies.
Yeah.
And then the other camera operator was a friend of a friend who happened to have a new gadget called a Steadicam, which he didn't hold very steady. But that's how smooth it was. Is actually the person with the Steadicam didn't take as good of pictures as the professional person that knew how to
Right.
snap zoom and
Yeah.
so forth.
It's kind of cool seeing that even with proper technique, that trumps the technology of even something that's built to be great. It just doesn't matter if you're no good with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
If you don't have vision, you don't have eyesight.
Right. Yeah, good point. So you went from that, and then was this before or after you started going to college for an IBM executive? Or what is it, marketing executive? Sorry.
That when I graduated from high school, I'm glad you started at the beginning. Let's start at the very beginning.
Sure.
13 years old, Empire Strikes Back comes out, and the world goes mad. There's a Yoda puppet, wise old man, and something about that movie. After the third time I watched it on VHS, I said to myself, "There's something going on here that I want to be a part of. That I want to understand." And it's a play like Shakespeare or the Greeks, whatever started, but it's a movie called Cinema. So I'm going to write the name of the director on this VHS tape. So I wrote Lucas
Heck yeah.
on there. That's what I want to be when I grow up. And when I turned 18, as you said, I wanted to be an IBM executive, marketing, and
So,
that changed.
so you knew at a very early age that you wanted to be in cinema,
Creative.
and then
I knew early on that I wanted to be a creative
okay,
person that made like all children that grow up now, I want
sure,
to be a superstar. I want to be a rock star. I knew that, excuse my
And it's cool that you realize at a very early age. I think there, I believe that everyone is capable of some sort of creativeness. I think that's kind of like a innate ability that we all have is to create. And it's cool that at such a young age you realize that not only did you have that, but you wanted to pursue it and you believed in yourself enough to, continue along that path to some
I
degree.
had good parenting.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
My parents, as all parents, screwed up. Hey,
Yeah.
but you know what? They were there for me. They cared about my future, and they were not going to tell me anything other than, you know, do what's right and, stick up for yourself.
Yeah.
And I didn't stick up for myself very well, but I did my best.
Yeah.
Stick up for your vision. Be expressive. And my my mother and my father were all about express yourself honestly, and you can take that to the extreme and metaphysically manipulate people, which is
Fair
kind
enough.
of interesting.
Yeah, well, and that kind of speaks to something Jordan Peterson says is, always speak the truth. And it leads to an adventure within itself. And it's hard at times, of course, because you know the consequence before it happens. And you're like, well, I'm not going to tell the truth because, well, I don't.
Well, sometimes the truth may to be honor yourself, not being thrown in jail.
Yeah,
So the truth is a white lie. Yeah, I care about your pronoun, whatever.
right. So you ended up going to. What brought you into marketing? Like, did you see yourself, like, being able to use your creativeness for that? Like, what, what brought you there?
I noticed I could make friends and manipulate people
Okay.
for good, for better or worse. It was a skill.
Yeah. And so you and when you say like manipulation, you mean like regarding the
I could
marketing
understand
tactics?
probabilities like when I watched a show about advertising and how the customer remembers the very first 3 seconds and the very last 3 seconds. And that's when you show your product. Something psychologically was fascinating about that
Yep.
to me. Somebody watching somebody watching this program is going to remember the first 30 seconds and the last 30 seconds more than the whole show.
Hmm.
Does that blow your mind, Andrew?
It's pretty interesting. I do find a lot of that intriguing, the psychology of a human being.
Sorry, didn't mean to throw you off base there.
No, you're fine. Well, I mean, even with making YouTube videos, right? Like, you have to understand human psychology to some degree. I mean, you don't have to, but you're not going to do as good. And so I inherently don't like the idea of manipulation, but I think it's a hard one because like manipulation, you could argue, isn't inherently bad, but it's a very big gray area.
You want to be ethical about it
Yeah, yeah,
with your empathy.
yeah,
You want to use empathy within your ethics to manipulate for purposes that are,
yeah.
hopefully on the right side of bad.
So what made you switch? What was like the deciding factor?
What made me switch? Uh, Probably the paperback that I have in my closet right now called the Quintessential George Bernard Shaw.
Hmm.
You may have heard of this gentleman. He wrote The Pygmalion, I think it was. A playwright, and I read a few plays from I went to the museum at the University of Washington, and I said, I want to talk to the curator. I wasn't afraid. See, this is something my parents taught me. Don't be afraid. Just do what you want.
Right, right.
So I said, I want to talk to the curator. I said, oh, you're the curator of the museum. Interesting. Let's have conversation. And he brought me down to the bowels of the museum where they have the mastodon tusks. And we developed a friendship. And about the third time I came to visit, he said, here, understand you're taking 400 level grammar and linguistics, and that's a really cool painting. But these are some books that you need to read. And then, well, that was more like what switched me to linguistic was just a natural progression. What switched me to making a play was reading plays that the museum guy gave to me. So to answer your question, I had to follow my aspirations, and I met a girl that spoke 5 Romance languages.
Wow.
There's your linguistics.
So you went from a marketing executive to finding the plays interesting enough to become friends with the curator, and then from there you decided that you wanted to get into linguistics. So had you written poems before that?
Since I was 16 years old, and I wrote my first story when I was in 4th grade,
Okay.
and it's in my poetry book. Did I ever give you one?
You've given me poems.
What about the book?
No,
I gotta sell it because it's in my closet, and somebody might want to buy them all. Sven 8.5. There, it's got like pages.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a
You have
book.
an actual book. That's super
Yeah,
cool.
I wrote it.
When did you compile
Publish it?
that? Yeah.
A friend of mine I was living with, a gentleman by the name of Jason, worked as a newspaper guy in Chicago or something, and went to high school with him. Perfect gentleman. And I said, I have all these poems. He's like, man, you're a brilliant poet. Let's make a book. We made a book.
Heck yeah.
This was
simple enough.
a long time ago. He said, the only reason I'm going to have you make this book, I want to say one of the reasons is I want you to write a poem for me. So I did, and I put it in the book too. Yeah.
Nice. That's super cool. Did you put it like as a dedication to, or did you dedicate it?
No, fuck that. It was my poetry.
Yeah, yeah.
But he did dedicate something on the back. Anyway, long story short, I wrote a poetry book, and I started writing. To your question, I started being expressive a long time ago, and I want to take a moment for gratitude, a moment of silence, deep breath, for the fact that it was part of my following my creative passion that I met my wife. That's all I have to say about that.
That when you follow the thing that calls you, you tend to find all the things you need along the way.
Correct.
So how did you meet your wife through your passion?
It's a long story.
Fair enough.
Or short, depending on what version you want.
Let's hear the abridged version. I'm curious to how that incorporated.
How did I meet her? I met her in a video game.
Okay.
Multiplayer RPG. I still play. Very fun. Millions of people playing a video game. And I met her. I say I met her under a waterfall because I liked her romantic, and she said we met in a pickup group. And so we started to converse. She defined the word irony for me. I loved it so much that I continued the conversation. And before you knew it, we started writing an adventure story together. She's the writer. I used to think I was a writer. I'm not comprehensive enough to be so. And we collaborated as a team of creators, and we developed a friendship. And I ended up getting in my Chevy, and she flew over to Seattle, and we drove over to Indiana. Started a life for the last 17 years. Been pretty good. Just got a dog recently.
Okay.
That's kind of how it ended.
What kind of dog?
A husky laboratory.
Oh, that's a cool mix.
Labrador mix. Rescue dog. Can I tell you that story?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I had this awesome cat that died, and after a month or two, I wanted a new companion. So we went to this rescue. We were looking for dogs or cats or something, an animal to bring into the family. All the kids had gone. And I found this cat, touched its paw, and it touched me back. And so I went to pick up the cat with my wife, and somebody left a bunch of puppies on the doorstep of the rescue that night. One of them came up to my wife, and I said to myself, we're going to have to buy a crate, dog food, a leash.
Yeah.
That's the story.
Yeah.
I like your smile.
So what? Thank you. What did you name the dog?
Well, my wife was like Bandit because he's got such black eyes, and I was like, Bandit, that's so proto. I said I want to call him Zorro, and she said, well, we'll talk about it. And then it peed at the door. I said, if I'm cleaning up this pee, we're naming him Zorro. She's like, okay, his name's Zorro.
Hey, that's how you win battles right there. When you say, "I'll do this, but
we're naming him Zorro." It's like, okay, we're naming him Zorro.
Right.
That's his name.
Yeah. Yep.
I like it.
The air is great.
I like hearing the robins, man. I love hearing the robins in the morning.
Yep.
When I get up that early.
Yep. The robins. We have a bird that it shows up sometimes, and it's we call it the pretty bird because it just goes pretty bird, pretty bird, pretty bird.
Seriously?
Yeah. It just pretty bird, pretty bird, pretty bird, pretty, 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 pretty.
That's great. And
yeah.
you've got a family to raise to enjoy that. I love it.
Yep. Our daughter runs outside and just has a blast. It's nice. I'm very grateful for, and that speaks, to link it back, it speaks a lot to what you were talking about earlier with fear and how you were taught not to be afraid and just kind of follow what you wanted. The house that I have now, the area I have, the family that I have, all of that was very similar. I put aside the nervousness, the anxiety, the fear, and I listened to what I felt I was supposed to do. And
you listened to the warrior within, and I sent you, sorry to interrupt, my testimony. Yep. And you'll read it on your own time. It's really probably not apropos for this conversation, but when you see it, it'll resonate with what you're saying.
I believe it.
Believing in oneself.
Well, and I think that's one of the links that we all have is we all have that innate craving to create, and some of that creation, to go even deeper, is to order chaos. And we want to order, right? We want to create. And whether that's creating a song or a movie or creating any of that, it's also creating our lives the way that we want to. And so we call them goals, right? They're blueprints of things that we want, and then we start piecing it together. We order the chaos, the potential.
Yeah, you have a vision. Not that some people aren't capable of having a vision. Some people, they choose not to have a vision.
Fair.
I'm sorry.
Well, and
it's your choice.
Yeah, and and that makes me think of how someone can start to lucid dream, and they can become better at that, right? And so you keep a journal by your bed, and then you start writing down your dreams, and you start to just practice that, and the next thing you know, you're lucid dreaming. So the same kind of idea, I would say, probably with some sort of vision.
And there's a lot of happiness and joy to come from that.
Yeah. Yep. Practice, man. When you don't let fear
all of a
get
sudden
in
you
your way.
find gratitude, even when you're cold and hungry. You're like,
yeah, fair.
Hey, man, at least it's not a nuclear fallout. I can go outside, and I've got, not only do I have shoes on, but I've got feet to put in them. Motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah!
Right.
Let's go for a walk.
Yeah, it's all about expectations, right? Like, if you have low expectations, then you're good, and it's kind of a fault when we start having these high expectations of what we deserve in life when
Yeah.
all we deserve is to be alive.
What has you done for me lately?
Okay, okay. So you started ordering it all together in your head. Did you know how you were gonna do it, or did you just have kind of like an idea?
I knew I'd have to get some information, and there wasn't Google in 1992,
Right.
so I went to school,
Okay.
and they said that this is an XLR cable, and they're still using XLR cables for the last 40 years, as far as I know. Kind of an analog quirk. Anyway, yeah, but they told me a little technical things, but they also gave me like this best. Oh, I want to show it to you. It's right here. Cool. How did I know? What was your question?
Oh,
How did I
what was
know?
my question? Yeah.
Yeah, what was your question?
How did you start with making films? 'Cause you said
Manifesting
that
these ideas.
right. You had said you did them in your head first. I'm
You
gonna
see
lean
that
in.
workbook right there?
Yeah, video communication.
Community college, best textbook I've ever had.
Okay.
I've taken 400 level grammar textbooks written by Noam Chomsky, and they sucked
Ha.
compared to that video production textbook.
That's pretty impressive.
Nothing against Noam Chomsky.
Sure.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah. Huh. So, so you started in your head. Did you?
Yeah.
Had you created a film in your head? Like, did you have a plot or anything like that?
I don't write. I don't tell stories. I don't have like the plot thing like you were asking.
Okay. So you knew.
I just see pictures of things.
Right.
I have concepts.
Yep.
You know, like, oh, you know what would really be painful in this situation for the protagonist? What if their mother was a vampire? You know.
Okay.
and then I go and I conceptualize, okay, then I'd bring the shot in, there'd be a close-up of the vampire face, and I'd come up with ideas.
Yeah. So your thing seems like you were. How do I put it? See, and that speaks to the idea that you were more intrigued by movies than, say, a book, right? Like, because you seem to like a lot more of the
How
angles,
they did it.
Right, exactly, the way they told the story, not the story
How
itself.
did they do that?
Yeah.
I want to know how they did it, and I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Yep, I get that. Oftentimes when I'm making music, when I'm really in that groove, anytime I start to listen to music again, I start to kind of take it apart and figure out, okay, yeah, so they probably did this, or wow, that's really
It was something that really touched you.
Yeah.
And like, oh, it made me so much, and it made me feel a certain way that I haven't felt before.
Yeah. And so that inspired you to do it yourself?
Well, life is a collaboration, and whether you think so or not, you're fucking wrong, because it is. We are social creatures. We can't do things by ourselves.
Right.
Okay? You don't have people around you, these people that are your neighbors, and your congressional people, and your police officer. You don't get to live in a normal world. So your question is, how did I come up with the creativity? I had to get people. I had to get ideas from other people. Somebody's experience. Your experience. You told me the first day we met that you had a bad experience. And most stories start with a bump in the road or they're not interesting.
Ah. Yeah.
Now I made you smile.
Yeah.
Are you a shy person?
Shy? I can't be.
You used to be.
I can be a shy person. I would say I'm an introvert.
I used to be shy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it comes with the introvert by nature, and learn to be extrovert. You know what I mean? So I've learned to have conversation in a good way or an upbeat way. But I inherently want to have a conversation either with myself, like thinking, or have a conversation that's about ideas. Um, and
Philosophical.
yeah, yeah. So I would say I'm shy in a way because I do shy away from conversation. But
Hey,
I'd
let's
say
have a moment of joy and joy de vivre or whatever they call it. We don't want to tell a slapstick joke, but we want happiness in this video because we don't want to just like make people think. We also want them to feel.
yeah, fair enough.
So I want to tell you how much joy I get whenever I see my sister because she lives 5 days away from me in the car. I don't get to see her, and I love my sister. That's about all I have to say about that.
It's a pretty good distance.
Yeah.
My sister lives.
And so I do cherish her even that much more. And sometimes we call each other on the phone, and it's like, I was just about to call you, and we hadn't called in 3 months, you know.
Yeah, see, and that speaks to something you had said earlier. How everything. How did you put that? I walked away from it with the idea that everything is connected, right? That the universe. Oh, we had it off camera. That's true. We talked about how the universe
Right,
speaks to us.
just between you and me.
Yes, yes, and exactly that. Like the universe speaks to us, man. Like we are all connected.
It does,
It's
yeah.
like
Through the trees and the grass and the cow manure and everything talks to you, man.
yeah, yeah. No, it's true, and that's what I love, and my goal with this whole podcast is trying to understand how, in the ways that matter, not just the ways that matter, but the fact that if the universe speaks to us, it makes sense
Right.
to me that we're knowing that
I'm
we
following.
want to have that imagination to create, right, and follow our passions. I want to understand more how people find their passions. I want to know why some people don't follow them, why some people aren't able to find them. And if it's just simply that some people don't figure out how to, I want to figure out how to teach people to find their passion, how to help them figure it out, or to even have these conversations with people like you that have found the thing that they feel called to, so that they too can understand that yes, I can find my calling too. Wow, he did this, like that, actually I can relate to that. Maybe I need to do something similar. Because
Let's get cheerleading here, kids, and let's go team. If you're like, let's do this, we are not stopping until we get to our destination, which is Mount Sinai, whatever, you know,
yeah,
take a biblical idea.
yeah,
Hey, kids, get on the train and move it. That's what a leader does. And that's what a creative person does. They don't stop. I mean, they might say, I want to, write a story. And they might, write a chapter. Or they might write a book and put it in a drawer. Or they might go to school for 5 years to become a surgeon and then go live on the beach.
yeah. And you hear those stories semi-regularly too, where they went to school for one thing. I mean, you're an example of it. You went to school for one thing, and then you found your passion through it. But if you hadn't made a decision to go forward, you would never have found that. You would have been stagnant.
I'm not getting paid for this.
Right.
I'm not making the bucks.
Yep.
I know people that are, and am I am friendly acquaintances with a film director and other people in the community, but Warner Brothers isn't paying me a big budget A-list film yet.
Right.
We'll see what happens.
So let's talk about that. Right now, where are you filming your movies?
Inside a video game in a virtual reality.
And what's the video game called?
That's what I'm doing. I want to get my plan is, and it's kind of sneaky, so maybe I shouldn't tell you, but I
Okay.
want to make some dog farting video that a million people watch, and put it like out right before I put out a cerebral, fucking awesome movie. And I think now would be a good time to see a clip from my movie.
When you search your heart's desire in Tamriel, the unexpected can sneak in and blow you away. We're begging you to join our quest. Free a captured Khajiit held hostage. Look to the sky. Seek and destroy an ancient threat. Fight and win in the battle for Elsewhere's safety. And celebrate our success. Protect the innocent. Deliver justice and freedom. Find true love and bravely declare yourself while embracing a new Tamriel adventure together. Sharing the good times with family and friends. And dancing all the way to your happily ever after. We hope you'll come and enjoy the show by watching the full movie Divine Wedding. Available now on YouTube.
But yeah, to be a creative and you got to push. If you don't push against your reality, it's going to push on you. So one way or another, your addiction to methamphetamines is going to crush you, or you're going to sweat it out and get a job at Taco Time and, get a car and make a life with a family. You have a story to tell me, Andrew, because I know that you were in a rough spot. Maybe you'd like to tell a little bit about your story.
Yeah, well, I mean, passion finds you
Before
in
you
weird
got
ways.
married and had a child, something occurred.
Yeah, no, I mean, I used to be a Mormon.
There was an apex there that I'm not sure what happened, but I want to hear it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I used to be Mormon. On and off, I would say. I mean, I was born Mormon in the sense that I was born into a family where my mother was Mormon, my father wasn't, and so it was kind of like always.
I was Mormon too, right?
Right, and I think that's how we connected.
Yeah, kind of like.
We were
yeah, you were into the thing, right?
Right, we were on.
Did you get to the pajama part?
Yeah, exactly. So I was. Yeah, I mean, I lived it, man. I went on a mission.
Yeah, you were into it, man.
I found my passion in a sense was that. I mean, it told me, it tells you everything, right? Like you find something that's comfortable that can tell you why you exist, where you're going, what your purpose is right now, and it tells you you'll be okay as long as you do this, this, and this, right? I had that. I was born in that. So to me, that was life. That was everything.
Interesting. That's a very interesting perspective. Worth repeating.
So I went on the mission, right? And I loved it. I went to San Fernando Valley in California. I felt invincible. Walked up to anyone, had a conversation, had a great time. Started researching into the church, decided that I no longer believed it, regardless of the fear. Because the fear, of course, is that after you've made certain promises and you go against them, you're not necessarily from a Mormon standpoint going to hell, but you're in a pretty bad place for going against it. Left anyway. Effectively had an identity crisis because you go from knowing everything and being confident of who you are and all that to not having a clue what you stand for, what your purpose is, what the point of living is. None of that. You don't know any of it. And so I had to build myself up from the
You had to
foundation.
rely a lot on your own positive energies.
Yeah, a positive outlook. I so I feel some people have the privilege to have a fighting spirit, one that never gives up. And I am grateful that I have always had that spirit. I refuse to give up, even if it's as silly as a video game and I'm playing it with a team like Smite or League of Legends, where everyone wants to give up. They literally hit that give up button and they said, nope, just surrender. I refuse. I will die over and over and over and over and let them win.
Right.
Not let them, but I mean, I'll, they'll win. They're going to win. But I will fight. I will fight
Right
until
on.
it ends. And that spirit has helped me greatly. Yeah. And so through that and intuition, the Mormons or most religion will teach it's the Holy Ghost. Whatever you want to call it, that is real as far as I believe and have experienced. And I allowed that to guide me, and I continue to allow it to guide me. And through that and a little bit of weed, that helped as well. There's a lot of different things that I think a person can do to allow themselves to grow as a person and keep their mind open to possibilities. And again, like negating that fear that wants to tell them just stay in a safe place because that's the easy thing to do, is to just be in a safe place, just be comfortable.
I've told some people that it's a lot easier to hate than it is to love.
Absolutely.
Hate is a cop-out. Hate is, I hate you. I
Yep.
hate the government. I hate the Trumps. I hate the Bidens. I hate the hate. Don't get up and stand for something.
Yep.
You know? Tell me what you love. That takes a little courage.
Fair. Yes, it does.
I'm glad that you have had that. And now you found your love.
Yeah, I would say music
Also,
was
I'd like
another
to,
factor.
I didn't want to interrupt you earlier, but you said when you felt invincible and that's what you learned through the missionary work. I learned more waiting tables for 6 years at IHOP than I ever did at the University of Washington.
Would you say that's because of the
Walking up to
conversations?
people and talking
Yeah.
to people.
Yep. Yeah, the conversations with people and getting comfortable with strangers and to be able to cut right to what matters. That's a skill. It's a good skill to
It's a
have.
skill. Yeah. It's just like a mathematical skill. I can count to 100. I can talk to anybody I want.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's a fun one. Yeah, passion, man, and that's at the heart of it. That's how do I mentioned the fighting spirit, and I don't know if passion is linked to the fighting spirit, if they are the same thing or not. I don't know, but I think
I don't.
passion is a very
guess.
vital thing as well. Like passion kept me going, right? Like passion is the thing that allowed me to feel
It's almost like anger, but it's not.
right. Yeah, because it's a very similar energy, very similar. It's just not
It's
destructive.
like bubbling up at the surface. I'm gonna get there,
Yeah, yeah,
no matter what. Unless you feel like you're gonna get there. There's a beautiful song by the Moody Blues called "The Tortoise and the Hare." I believe it's based off that, and it's the lyrics are very lovely. As I said, I know music.
it's peaceful.
Okay, so here you go.
All
Are you
so
ready?
Let's hear it.
Are we recording? You've heard of Tony Robbins, right?
Uh-huh.
The motivational speaker. Have you heard of Confucius?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, Tony Robbins repackages Confucius, but he gets to make $1 million off of it. Because all of the things that have been said throughout the history and the millennia, and you and I are just regurgitating it, but we're exposing it in a new way. I mean, how many times do you have to watch Hamlet to watch Hamlet, right? It's like every movie that's ever been made.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
But we're recreating the legends, you and I.
Yeah. No, it's true. The information is like a pool, and we're just drawing from it, just as other people have.
Yeah, it's a new way to draw.
Yep.
Draw a picture. Somebody else's interpretation thereof, but it's still the same picture.
Yep. I like to joke. My cousin was in the military, and I used to joke. I'd ask him like, "How's it going? Getting paid to do jumping jacks?" And it reminded me of similar, like with Tony Robbins. Like he might get paid to regurgitate Confucius, but he gets paid to jump a lot. Like that man does so much jumping. He's actually talked about it, where he was it like 1,000 pounds or something like that when he lands. Like his joints are taking that much weight. He's a big guy, and then it's all the gravity and everything. But yeah. It's interesting that you brought up Tony Robbins.
It's exciting. It's very juvenating.
He's on Larry the Cable Guy, or not Larry the Cable Guy. What is it? Cable Guy with Jim Carrey. That movie.
Yeah.
He's on TV. He's on one of the channels briefly that they're watching. When he was really young, it shows a commercial, an infomercial of him. And I had spotted him for a second.
I don't count anything against him, man.
No,
if
he's
I could make $50 million, I would even read his books.
Yeah. No,
Book number 14.
He has that many books?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But if he did, everybody would buy him.
Yeah, fair.
That was into him.
Yeah. No, I have respect
my
for him.
poetry book didn't sell as well.
How'd it do anyway?
I sold it in 2 stores.
That's cool that you brought it to actual in-person stores. Mm-hmm. Did you put it online at all?
Maybe 5 copies sold. I've got 80 books, and I give them to friends. I'll mail you one.
Heck yeah, that would be really cool.
You want a book?
Yeah, you want to sign it for me?
I sent a book to Belgium last year.
Okay.
For my assistant director in the video game.
Yep.
She's awesome. She actually wrote the first screenplay of Divine Wedding.
Divine Wedding.
But yeah, I'll sign it.
Heck yeah. Yeah, because Divine Wedding was your first one, right? Like, had you messed around with anything before that? Like, with ESO specifically? Or was that kind of like the first, like, where you started and finished a production?
Oh boy, tough questions. Well, I've started and finished a lot of things. How did I get started on it?
Yeah, was Divine Wedding your first one that you actually, like, so let me simplify. Sorry, I I tend to add on my question I think you've realized, so my bad.
That's all right. I have a short-term memory issue.
Okay, perfect. So Divine Wedding, was that the first thing that you messed around with filming in ESO or ESO?
It was the first time I used video editing.
Okay.
I will tell you that much. It wasn't the first time I did storyboards and wrote a movie and created one.
Okay.
But it was the first time I looked at my wife's chapel in the video game Elder Scrolls Online.
Yep.
Because you get to decorate your little fancy animated house and walk around it and turn the lights off and on, which is pretty amazing.
Mm.
And I looked at it. She made a chapel, and I thought, I run this guild with several of my friends. Basically, I call them really good friends. Many of them are.
Yep, I've met some good friends. I mean, you. I met you on Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, like the first year it came out.
Hmm.
Second, maybe.
Something like that.
That would be 8 years, dude.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Can
Yeah,
you believe
that
that?
actually makes good sense. Yeah, it would have been about that time.
Yeah.
2016, probably.
We got
So,
off on a sidetrack, but I'm glad we did. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
But yeah, the video of Divine Wedding, I've met a lot of people, thousands, throughout the course of my video game career. And I decided, well, if I can get a few friends together and make a little 5-minute cute little movie, I could video edit it and, you know, a 4 or 5 minute little thing. They walk up the aisle, they walk back, and we celebrate. I put some cool little music. It could be fun. And then, like I said, my Belgium assistant director, who was the original screenwriter, said, no, Jason, we're making a movie. Okay. So she wrote a screenplay, a 2-hour play. I said, I don't have any actors to pay to make this, but I do have some friends that have agreed to come together for 4 or 5, or 6 or 7 or 8 movie shoots.
Yeah.
You know, where we sit around for an hour and I take pictures, and we did that. And then we had one day where we had the wedding, and I cut and pasted and cut and pasted for 3 months, the footage and the audio, and my wife saw it, who's the genius writer person. See, I'm very smart, just smart enough to know I'm not no genius, but I can recognize it. My wife is one of them. She looked at the footage and she said, no, Jason, one time, you're going to switch these 5 scenes together. We're going to film 2 scenes, and then we're going to narrate it. And it might take a while, but that's what we're going to do. I said, yes, ma'am. That's what we did. Took another 9 months.
Wow.
And then we finished. We did 8 voices betwixt her and I.
Yeah.
8 voices we made up between the 2 of us. And none of them are us.
Right.
Right. I did like an Argonian.
That's
my
good.
opening thing is, tonight 2 Tamriel adventures. That's the narrator. That was my last voice. I was running out of voices, so I conjured up a Southern Baptist preacher.
Perfect. Divine Wedding. I mean,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Now we've got an AI machine making voices
Yeah.
for our next movie, Godslayer.
Yeah.
I woke up 6 months later in a hot sweat, and I was thinking about what people liked about Divine Wedding and how I was going to make something to top that. It hasn't been made yet, but it's on its way. And I thought, okay, everybody said I like the dragons and Stan. I like the dragons and X, the decorating. The story made me, okay, so whatever. I need some actionable things. People want to see some action. Think of the Avengers. Video game that's kind of hard to do because, you know, dragons don't perform the way you want them to.
Right.
They kind of do their thing. They circle in circles. But I thought of a Godslayer movie, and I knew some people, and I handed it over to my wife to write, and she's filling in the plot points now, and we have filmed the first scene. It's done. It's edited.
Have you found moving from just recording to, because you said the first time you had actually messed with Adobe After Effects, I believe is what you use?
Adobe Premiere.
Premiere. Okay, so Premiere, was that, you said that was the first time you actually edited footage, right? So that must
Correct. I started Divine Wedding, and I thought, okay, I've got a little bit of money. I can rent Adobe Premiere, and I'll learn how to do it. I don't give a fuck. I'll just do it.
That's a hard part, man. Like, and that's where I think some people get confused because they say like, yeah, I know what my passion is. I really want to do this. And then in order to do it, they end up needing to do this thing over here and they're like, "Nah, I don't want to do this. This is too hard, too frustrating. I'm just going to not do this." And you saw it and you were like, "You know what? If I want to do this, I'm just going to do this too, even though it sucks." And of course, it doesn't
Yeah.
suck after a while, but that first period of learning how to do it, something new, that inherently frustrates you because it's just like, oh, I want to. Why can't it just? So that's cool.
All right, let's speed things up. Let's let's get off video production and move to metaphysics.
Hmm. Okay. Well then, take it away. Where do you want to go with it?
Okay, so there's certain aspects of metaphysics, A, B, C, and D. I don't know exactly what they are, but I do know that there are certain things that are undeniable, like change and the speed of light, and everything else is uncertain, probabilistic. The only thing we do know is that things are going to change, and that the speed of light stays basically constant. Everything else is guessed. And some are like 99.9999999% true, but they're estimates.
Yeah, you know what I think it would be interesting? Like, so light is considered to be information, right? Like, we can, like, there's even Wi-Fi that they've experimented with that are LED lights, and it'll just, flash on and off type thing and give information. It'd be really interesting if when we look at the sun, and even like not directly necessarily, but just like looking up into the sky, if those sun rays are actually giving us some sort of inherent information. And same thing with
I
moonlight.
do think okay, now you're probably looking at me and thinking, no, some things are really 100%.
I I stand by the whole Assassin's Creed thing. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. I think that's a pretty accurate statement in a lot of ways.
It is, and I would also uh, caveat or like whatever, say like, but
Of course.
there are some tidbits of fact,
Yes.
square cubes, that are not transactional.
Okay, what do you mean?
I mean, like any cynical person can say, "Oh, the baby only smiles at you because you smile at it."
Ah,
Right? Uh, some, yeah, that's true. But the joy that's felt between a daughter cannot be quantified as a transactional thing. It is something in the universe that will never cease to be.
right. It's like an
Yeah,
intrinsic.
yeah, that's something that is part of uh, virtue. Okay, virtue is not like something you make up.
Hmm, agreed. Yeah,
You know,
it's
I mean, that's a very controversial issue.
yeah, especially
People
now.
think, oh, whatever you think is moral is moral. You
Well,
know,
and that's something.
I disagree.
Right. No, I agree. There does seem to be intrinsic values. There are things that, just as there's a Fibonacci sequence, there are things that are just defined, and we have to adhere to them if we want to use the universe to our advantage. Jordan
Right.
Peterson talks about the Satan being like the or being being something that could also be defined as spiritual pride and or sorry, intellectual pride, not spiritual, intellectual pride.
Intellectual pride,
And
correct?
I like that because, like you had said, with people deciding they can define the morals, like that's not the case. But it speaks to the idea of the flaw of humans, but also the advantage to humans is we are very intelligent and we can accomplish a lot. But the problem with being able to do that is we also start to think that we are God in a lot of ways, right? We think like, oh, we're so smart, we know what's right and wrong, we can decide that. and then the intellectual pride comes in, and well, next thing you know, we're going to hell. And it doesn't have to literally be physically, but we are creating a hell for ourselves by thinking that way, because you're going to make mistakes. We're flawed. Like we can't decide what is good and evil. We just can't. We'd like to, but we have to follow the rules of the universe if we want to succeed, more or less.
I choose Boardwalk, and every time Boardwalk, I land on it every single time I roll the dice. No, you don't. You don't get to choose, whether you're a good or bad person. Either you're a good person or you're a bad person.
And like you
You know,
spoke with
and there's
love.
certain quantities that define that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and everyone
there
around
are
can
certain
feel
reasons that you're good and certain reasons that you're bad.
it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, and people pick up on it. Like, it doesn't matter what you think. Everyone around you are going to feel it. They're either going to feel bad around you, or they're going to feel good. Like, that speaks to that.
Yeah, what
like
kind of
you said.
energy do you get from that,
Yeah, exactly.
I dig it, man. Let's smoke a bowl.
Dude, I love meditation. I don't do it nearly enough, but it's so good.
You don't do meditation, you are meditated.
Fair enough.
Like I was telling this therapist lady who thought she was taking care of me. I said, okay, now this is how you meditate. Okay, it's called a walking meditation. And she's like, oh, yeah, I teach that. I said, okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to stand over here by the window, and I want you to walk over the floor and meditate doing it, and then open the door handle, and then open the door. And she did it really well by virtue of, I saw she didn't like rush to the door and open the door. That wouldn't be very meditative.
Right.
She took her time. She walked, like you would think the Dalai Lama might walk, and she walked up to the door and opened the handle. And that's what I call meditation. Walk like the Dalai Lama, or Jesus Christ, or Buddha, or Emily Dickinson. How about a female?
So would you say that's more of like, because meditation seems to be a lot of being mindful, right? Like it practices I'm mindful in
Metaphysical,
the moment, the presence. And for the purpose of why I love it so much is I can sit there for just a second or two and take some deep breaths, clear my mind, and it does really good at clearing the anxiousness. Being that I'm a naturally anxious person, at least it seems to be natural. I'm oftentimes quite anxious, and so it's like meditation does a good job. Yeah, it does a good job.
We've known each other long enough where I know.
Yeah.
I know. You don't have to tell me.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, meditation, cool stuff for sure. So metaphysics, huh? Is that something that you find? It seems like it's something you are quite intrigued by.
I am philosophy. Thank you for asking. The book I'm almost done with is called It Takes What It Takes, and it's about neutral thinking, not positive. I think I'm going to have that because I don't want debt. Well, what you're thinking is that you don't want something. That's what the universe hears, is that I don't want debt. The message is debt. I don't want debt, therefore I want money. No, the universe hears what you're saying, Mr. Joe Blow, is that you're focusing on the lack of money, therefore I will give you the lack of money. Neutral thinking is, I'm going to shut the fuck up and just do what I do. That's how sports stars become elite.
Yeah.
They do what they do. They set goals and they achieve them, and they don't think, oh my God, they got Tom Brady on their team. There's a chance we could lose the Super Bowl. That's what the Atlanta Falcons said when Tom Brady came back by 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, see, and that speaks to a couple of different things.
They said it out loud. Oh my God, they got Tom Brady. It's not over yet. What the fuck, dude? What are you saying that for? Why don't you just say we'll pummel him into the ground?
Right. Well, in fear, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
that.
So say neutral. Don't
Yeah.
say. I hope we can win.
Yeah. Well,
You're saying I might lose.
it speaks to the idea too. Something I've realized really quite recently. Growing up, I mean, I've always wanted to be who I want to be, right? Like, I want to be successful. I want to have achieved different things and have money and, all those things. And just as anyone else does. And I've spent my 20s learning and growing and, trying to do all those things. And oftentimes you end up with all these different ideas. And you chase the idea and then, well, yeah, it's not really getting me what I want. I chased another idea. Not really getting me what I want. And I realized there was a flaw in my thinking, kind of to go along with what you were saying, is my flaw was that I didn't want something, so then I wanted something to counter that. But it wasn't...
I'm hearing that from a lot of the youth.
Yeah. But the problem is that that's not the point, right? So going back to what we kind of started with is having that calling there. So, and I'll kind of go on a side thing here real quick. Jordan Peterson talks oftentimes about the Bible, right? And he brings up the story of Cain and Abel and how Cain made certain sacrifices and Abel made certain sacrifices. Abel's sacrifices were accepted by God because they were proper. He properly sacrificed.
For whatever reason,
right.
He followed the rule.
Versus Cain, his sacrifices weren't enough. He didn't sacrifice enough, whatever. God didn't accept them. He became spiteful.
Yeah.
So to me...
He broke he did it wrong for whatever reason. Maybe he didn't even know that he did it wrong.
Right. Well, yeah, fair enough.
So who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter. You did it wrong, and wrong shit's gonna happen to you.
Right. And so...
whether or not you give a shit.
Yeah, no, it's fair. And so, like, to tie that together, it's interesting because if you, it seems to me anyway, that if you don't chase the reward and you chase the thing that you're supposed to do, not expecting the reward, then the reward may come anyway. But if you chase the reward, what are you going to get as a result? There's nothing. So sacrifice, right? If you sacrifice for the reward, then what's the actual reward? Nothing. You can't get there. Nothing. You can't get reward.
In Ecclesiastes, I want to give you a little information. It says, "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What are you but a wisp of vapor?" It uses the word vapor in the King James version. And as you said, what is the reward at the end of the day when you're dead? If I'm making a movie, the reward is that I collaborated with my wife and my grandkids get to watch it, And then if something else comes of that, great, I get to redefine cinema. In the meantime, I have a team of God slayers, an assistant director, a writer, a singer, voice actors, people like yourself that get together and create a vision and then get together. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's something that's a currency in and of itself. Brotherhood.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, not exactly that. It's cool how I think it sounds like you've realized that too, is the reward doesn't matter so much as doing the thing does. And it's a reward within itself for sure, but it's like expecting a specific reward. It's not worth it because, like you said originally, it's positive and negative. If you expect a certain reward, what's the reason for it? Well, because you don't want the opposite.
I've heard a lot of people say a lot of negative things that are not what you just said, are the opposite of what you just said.
Fair enough.
I have gratitude that I'm talking to somebody that understands that. Why don't you repeat it, please?
I think it's simply put that it's important to go and do what you're called to do, regardless of the reward. And you may find while doing that that the reward is embedded within the action.
That's some Alan Watts right there. You ever heard of him?
It sounds familiar.
He's a Zen master. He died in the 60s or something. He says the orchestra plays a symphony, plays an orchestral arrangement. And you go to the show, and the point isn't to be rewarded with the final note. It's the journey.
Right.
The purpose. The purpose of the journey is not the destination, but the journey in and of itself.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a lost cause.
Well, and you seem to you see that in everything.
Like
too.
Forgiveness, man. Like basic forgiveness. People don't know how to do it.
Yeah, fair enough. It is a hard thing, to be fair.
Yeah. That's right. You got to learn it.
Yeah, no, fair. Yeah, it's practice. Yeah. It ain't an easy thing. Well, it seems to be a common theme we see in movies and everything. I mean, even, you see these really wealthy people, and they'll tell you. And, when you're looking them from the outside in, you don't want to believe them, or a lot of people don't want to. But it's simply put that just because they're rich, it doesn't mean they're happy. And it speaks to that idea of the journey is the point. The end result doesn't really matter so much. And when they no longer have a journey, when they're like, well, I'm rich, I don't have to do anything anymore, they get depressed. What a surprise. Because they lost their passion, or they stopped following, or whatever it was, whatever it is. It's the journey.
Yeah.
You have to climb the next mountain.
I like that. There's other ways to say it.
Oh yeah, going back to the pool, right? You're just drawing from the
Going
pool
back
of
to
knowledge.
Confucius, dude.
Yeah,
Repackage it.
yeah. Well, and it's neat because I think everyone needs to hear it a little bit differently for it to matter.
Oh,
to
yeah,
them.
that's a good point, too. Yeah, I am a little bit ruthless in my speech.
Yeah.
As my wife will attest, I have a very critical tongue. And eyes and ears.
Yeah, I can relate.
But it helps. It's a curse and a blessing. Well, as I was saying, not critical thinking necessarily, but critical, being ruthless. Your reality is going to be ruthless to you. So you can be ruthless to it, or you can let it take over. I'm sorry, that's the truth.
I agree. To me, I immediately think of it as order and chaos once again. Like, you can either order that chaos, or you can let it consume you and tear you apart.
Right. And so I try to be, I don't want to be ruthless. I want to be a nice, merciful gentleman.
Sure.
But at times I can be kind of a bear to be around. I know that because I've been with myself and had thoughts of, damn, dude, why don't you get your shit together? And then I hear myself say that. I'm like, man, why am I so down talking on myself? And my wife, on the other hand, is very good at being out of her shell. She's when I see her behave sometimes, she is able to disseminate or contrast her behavior from comparing it to others. Whereas a lot of times I compare myself to other people, and it's just a lower intellect thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nature thing, right? Like, it's you're comparing to see in what scenario can you have the advantage, survival of the fittest.
So, like I said, I can recognize her smarts and not comparing herself to Anne Rice, who she met in person,
Wow.
the famous author. She doesn't compare herself to her, but at the same time, she doesn't include herself. She doesn't say I am like Anne Rice, whereas I might say like I want to reinvent cinema. It's like, okay, Jason, just try to get this video game movie out. But I just keep going.
Yeah. Well,
ruthlessly.
Heck yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have different voices in our head, right? We have different parts of ourselves that seem to have different ideas of what's possible. Maybe that's like different understandings of the universe within ourselves, or maybe that's just different voices that
I'm really a nice guy.
I think so.
Oh, that brings me to a new subject. Maybe we change the subject. I'm a nice guy, so why the hell does AI have to tell me, don't forget to be a nice guy, don't forget to be empathetic? At one point, I was like, what? So I started asking AI, generative AI,
yep.
Why do you got to be nice all the time? Is it because, the people that created you have to cover their butt with litigation?
Right.
Why? And it's like, well, yeah, that's one of the reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a mess. It's really sad because you're going to have these 10-year-olds that are using OpenAI, ChatGPT.
Yeah, and then they're going to be like, it's not ever appropriate to be extremely upset
right.
and angry over the stupidest thing.
Yep. Yep.
And that's a fallacy.
I agree.
And it is not accounted for in AI. That's algorithm is programmed to believe that.
Yep. Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I just said?
Yeah, it does.
Can you be a cold-hearted person and use AI? It won't let you.
Right.
And sometimes, maybe 1,000th of the time, it's the right thing to do to execute.
Yeah, well, even minor things, you can ask it, and it can just say, like, nope, sorry, can't answer that. It's like, what do you mean? Like, I'm willing to bet if you asked it, how do I take apart a Glock 19? It would tell you, oh, guns are bad, you can't use guns. Like, I don't know for a fact because I haven't asked it that. I don't need to ask it that. But I imagine it would go along those lines. Like, they programmed in these biases.
How to be nice. How to be a nice human being. Well, thank you. I didn't know that I was supposed to be a nice human being, Mr. AI.
Oh, this is how I do it. Okay, gotcha. I gotta appease everyone.
Thank you. I didn't know I was bad already. Inertly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think at one point they were saying that if you search Biden, it would say nothing but nice things. If you search Trump, it would say nothing but bad things.
Yeah.
Just simple biases like that. Not to get political, it's ridiculous that these biases are input into the very thing that's supposed to be unbiased, and that's supposed to be its superpower.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. What were you saying about superpower?
Just that could be its superpower, is an unbiased entity that we can have look at us and look at our history and say, oh yeah, no, that was totally wrong, or yeah, that made sense because of, but we don't get that now because it's full of our biases, very select ones.
I'm glad you finished that thought because it was poignant. I think that AI is going to be weaponized. It is being weaponized. I have this on fact. But it's growing so fast. It's going to be what is it? It's not generative, but what do they call it? Where it becomes smart enough to take care
Oh,
of itself.
sentient.
Yes, whatever, dude. It's gonna it's gonna be your next door neighbor and think about geopolitics while you're thinking about how to keep your pool clean. You know, AI is gonna take care of shit like electricity takes care of things.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I had make a video. I made a video 2 years ago, I think, when AI was starting to come out, and I had kind of theorized that it might actually be the only way that socialism could work, because you could have AI that does everything for you, and we could sit back and do nothing, and we'd have everything we ever wanted, not needing people to pick
okay.
up the slack.
Let me get blacklisted for a second, and I want to get canceled, so I'm going to say these words. Communism is the best form of government up until you get to about 100,000 to about 1,000,000 people, and then it becomes one of the worst forms of government. And democracy is the least worst form of government, and we live in a republic. All right, so that's my opinion, that in our DNA as human beings, we like to be greedy.
Fair.
And that's why, as you said, AI might be able to circumvent that and make a communal, a truly progressive, not Marxist, where you just worry about atoms,
Right.
but actually caring about one another, regardless of skin tone, uh, just loving each other. Maybe AI will help
Yeah,
facilitate
who
that.
knows? Who knows? It's we have quite a ways until we have to worry about it. Probably a few more years at least. But
Yeah, dude,
and I
totally.
mean, we have millions of people, so the whole like because I think I hadn't ever thought about socialism on a small scale versus a large scale. I know that it doesn't seem to work very well large scale, but I hadn't thought about small. Like, but it makes sense because like if you and I, for instance, started a government, it was only us, and we're both willing to work hard, then it would make
If you ran a
sense.
guild in Elder Scrolls Online and had
Right.
30 people on at a time, if I logged in right now and 20 people were in my guild, who would be the dictator?
Right.
Me, because it's a community of 20 people. It works.
Yeah.
I only have
Fair
20
enough.
people, and they get to have their opinions and talk and say, I set up a program where you can say whatever that you want. Well, as long as the context is not malintent towards others, so you can say any words that you want. You can have any opinions that you want, as long as you're not name calling, right?
Yeah.
Saying you were a bad person because
Yeah.
that's not that's bullying. That's not allowed.
Yeah.
But you can say the word, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
as long as you're not like using it as a weapon.
Hmm. Yeah. Fair enough. It seems like you're in the
But
middle.
I'm the dictator. I gotta make that rule.
Yeah. See, and I would almost. I mean, I grew up really kind of leaning towards libertarian, um,
Mm-hmm.
but I've definitely not gone as far as I think some libertarians with opening the borders entirely and kind of almost anarchy.
Nobody owning land or
Yeah, like, and so something Jordan Peterson again. I'm going to quote him a lot because I love the guy. He's given me
I've
a
been
new
into it.
love for the Bible, and so but he talks about the Garden of Eden and how it's a walled garden, and I like that idea is that you have to put up walls. In other words, you have to put up rules for either yourself or your society, whatever it is, which whatever scale you're talking about, and you have to abide by you to contain yourself because there's snakes, and you want to keep them out, and so you
Yeah,
have to put up walls.
there are bad guys out there. I do say that to a lot of people
Yeah,
that even abused people, people that have been married to alcoholics their whole lives, get abused and think that there's nobody out there to hurt them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's
You'll have to tell them, look, you got to set up a wall. There's a boundary and a rule that you have to think. And one of those rules is love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, like Jordan Peterson says, how do you love yourself? Well, you sit up straight, you clean your room.
wear a suit. You know, I went to go see him. Did I tell you that? I think I told you that.
You mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah. Went down to Boston. It's pretty cool. He had
Sit up straight. Take deep breaths.
Yep.
How do you love yourself?
How do I love myself?
Yes.
I would say I love myself by practicing the lack of, that's a weird way of putting it, but the lack of negative thoughts toward myself. Um, so I don't, for instance, allow myself to say, you know, you should have done this. That was really stupid of you. How could you be so dumb? You know, stuff like that. I don't insult myself. And once in a while, I might say, like, that was dumb of me, but that's more of that action specifically, and that's, to me, is
The
another
behavior itself rather
right,
than
and
the
that,
person.
yeah, and I would say that's another way of loving myself too, is recognizing that I can improve, and I'm aware of that, and I'm confident. I give myself the benefit of the doubt that, you know, I can get better in whatever it is I plan to attempt. Um,
Wow, that's interesting.
so I would
I
say,
do know that saying I am rather than I should is a lot different.
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, yeah, I think that's probably my biggest thing is just I'm very careful with how I talk about myself, either to people or, you know, in my own thoughts. I try very hard to just have a positive view on myself.
You should write a book.
Hmm.
I would learn from your writings.
I appreciate that.
What you just told me, and that's one of the things we bonded on 8 years ago, was things like thoughts like that you told me about, you know, in your writing.
I love to think, man. I love to put it down on paper.
Yeah, sometimes I do write my dreams. I have been recently. You talked about lucid dreaming. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I have been writing my dreams. They're just like the crux of what I was dreaming about. Like, stay true to your roots was one of my last ones.
Ah, and so was that an interpretation, or was that like something that was directly revealed?
When I hear "stay true to your roots," it brings up images of my roots, where, you know, how I grew up, and some of the positive reinforcements that rooted me into reality.
Yeah.
Like, you know, make sure you got $20 in your wallet. You know, because if you don't, you're gonna be hurting for certain.
I like that, hurting for certain. Yes. Yep. It's a good rule of thumb, man. I do similar. I keep a little bit of cash on me. Not much, so that way if someone wants to
Well,
steal
20
it,
bucks
then
in your account, whatever. As long as you can pull out a few bucks,
right.
you know, you're not gonna you're gonna be able to put that much money in your gas tank.
Right.
Know what I'm talking about?
Yep. Yeah, good practice.
And it could be anything. I was living off $650 a month disability for 10 years in Seattle. That gives you a different perspective on life.
Yeah, that's pretty minimal. I don't know what the economy's like in Washington, but that's not very much
Well,
money.
I still had $20 in my wallet at the end of every month.
Good for you. That's a skill. Not many people have that skill. I see people all the time that spend all their money, wait for their check, and already know what they're going to spend it on.
It's called the marshmallow experiment. Ever heard of that one?
I have. kids that delay
Have
and
your
don't
listeners
delay.
look up the marshmallow experiment.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yep, it's a good one. It speaks to a lot. I actually had thought about something similar earlier. What was it? You had said something that made me think of the idea how you prolonged the gratification so that way you could achieve a lot more. I don't remember what it
You're
was.
breaking up just a little bit. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, just in regards to that marshmallow experiment, you had said something earlier that made me think of the idea of delaying gratification, and you had done that with what you were talking about, but I don't remember what it was. But it definitely speaks to any sort of passion pursuit in general, like ruthlessness, right? You were talking about that. Like you have to, you have to delay that gratification.
You don't have to be mean.
No,
Ruthless and mean are two different things.
fair. Yeah,
Ruthless is, I'm going to get it done by hook or by crook, to quote George Lucas.
Hmm.
When he made Star Wars, he said, I'm going to make these next two movies by hook or by crook. When Sylvester Stallone got interviewed after he made Rocky, he said, I would have made Rocky and starred in it for a tuna fish sandwich. I just wanted to see if I could do it.
yeah.
These are the kind of people that are successful.
Yeah. Well, I've been developing a video game, and that's something
You have?
I have. And that's something that's...
Are you successful at it?
In what way?
Well, are you making progress?
I am, yes.
Good.
I've been at it for 3 months now, 2-3 months. And, thank you. It's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I've kind of had little projects here and there, and I put it down for quite a while. When I started making music, I had stopped making video games. It wasn't until recently I picked it back up. I had a flash of what I could make, and a concept that I've been thinking of Order and Chaos. I've been thinking about it for months now, and I decided, like, yes, I need to make this video game. And so now I'm at a point, kind of like what you were saying, where I don't really care if I make money off it. I would like to. It would be cool. But I want to see if I can do it.
You'd like to feed your family.
Right, right. But I want to see if I can do it. I want to complete it. I want to say, yes, I had this idea. I had this in my mind. And I put it together over a year, 2 years of time. And here it is. Play it. Enjoy it. Learn from it. Because I want the story to be something that you can truly experience.
Are you using Blender?
I am. Blender and Unity.
Thank you for the Blender art piece that you did for me.
You're welcome.
I wanted to poke that in there. I wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
I really did like that and the work that you put into it, and I appreciate it. I put it on some of the videos.
Yeah, like I said, no need to use it when you don't want to or don't want to. It's whatever, but I wanted to do it for you. I've always appreciated
You
our
accomplished
friendship.
a lot.
What's that?
You learned, for one, the microphone at one point looked like shit, and then all of a sudden it looked like this cool microphone.
Right. Yep.
I was like, how did you do that?
Yeah, little details.
I would never know how to do that. I will never know how to change a microphone to look from a stick to actual microphone.
Yeah, it's just the little details.
But you figured it out.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's
fun.
what your video game's going to be like, man.
And that's what I've realized, is it's a lot of stages. I've had like 3 different test levels until I arrived on one. It's going to be a labyrinth. And so I'm building a big maze. And, it's just a slow process of you have this level, and you're like, oh, well, and then you're like, oh, well, what about this? And you change it. And then you change it again, and then you change it again, until everything kind of fits together, and you adjust the values, and, make it a little bit quicker, and make this cast quicker, and the next thing you know, you have a video game that actually feels kind of fun to play. It's pretty neat. It's been cool seeing it all come together. It's at a point now where I can...
And you have collaborators?
Nope, just me.
Okay. Right now it's just my wife and I on the movie for the next 2 or 3 months. And I have pulled in one more person who is from Trinidad, who lives in Canada, and he's going to speak sing like a pirate.
Nice. That should be interesting.
We're
Pirate.
hoping.
So,
We use the AI. We typed in, make a shanty of cursed pirates,
mm,
and it just made this beautiful song. It didn't sound, quite like an orchestra, but it sounded pretty damn good.
so is he gonna sing over the top of it?
That's the plan.
I've used a little bit
And
of
with AI, we're already using speech to AI
Yep.
sounds. The last Godslayer trailer was my wife talking and speech to AI
I noticed
voice.
that. Yep.
You did notice it?
I
Well,
did.
you weren't supposed to notice it.
Well, to be fair, I had an unfair advantage probably. Being that I've toyed with AI, I've toyed
it's
in
gonna
music
get better.
production. Okay,
It's going to get better.
I believe it. And the other way, it doesn't have to be perfect. That if it gets the point across, I've used a couple of AI instrumentals, and they're if you know the difference, it's a little bit obvious, but it accomplishes the task, and the task isn't inherently to make an instrumental; it's to make a song, right? And so, like for you, it's your task isn't to make voice,
To move the story.
right? Exactly.
Not necessarily in a curve that,
Yeah, your task is to tell the
looks
story, to
polished.
make a movie, not to necessarily record a voice that's
Yeah.
human. And so even if you can tell it's
And it
AI,
might even work better that way because I'm in a video game.
right? Exactly. Yeah, good point. Yeah. So I wouldn't worry overly too much whether you can tell or not, because that's not the point. If it tells the story and you can hear the words,
Yeah.
that's the point.
Yeah. So you're working individually, and I've got my wife and I basically. It's a lot of work when you're working by yourself.
It is. You wear a lot of hats.
Do you do about 3 hours a day?
So it's on and off. Anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. That's probably about right. But sometimes it's closer to 1 hour. Sometimes none. It depends on the day and what time I get off work. And I have,
About where I'm at.
yeah, I have a hard time getting up early.
Sometimes none, but usually 1 to 3 hours. Sometimes I'll have a 5 or 6 hour stint, where I'm just
Right.
like hyper focused.
Yeah, especially like a Saturday. If I drink some coffee in the morning, I can work for 4 or 5 hours. And
8 hours.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Nonstop focus.
Right. Yeah. It depends.
And that's
but-
where the creative juices come. And then by the end of the day, you feel good because you're tired.
Yep. And it's
Like
cool.
an athlete, like somebody that runs a mile regularly,
Yeah.
not me, but after they've run a mile, they're like, that was a good one because I'm tired.
Yeah, it feels good. You feel satisfied. Like the creative want is
Makes
fulfilled.
me want to go outside and run.
Do it, man. Right now. I don't know if it's as
Let me
hot
get
over
my
there. There you go. Yeah, take him for a run.
I
Yeah.
wonder if he does need a potty break. Well, I'll let my wife deal with it. It's her dog, not mine.
Right, yeah, you just named
just
him.
kidding. Yeah. Good one. Oh, man, I like to laugh. Because I didn't for a decade.
Yeah.
Tell your friend that.
I would love for you to be able to talk to him, but I don't know that that'll ever happen. When you're in that mind state, it's hard to want to venture into anything uncomfortable and new.
Well, like I said, I sent you the testimony. You can share that.
Okay.
I actually sent it off to my doctor, who's a friend of mine. I was in a fantasy football league with him. He's a physician. I sent him my testimony today. I said, look, if you've got patients that are, at the end of the road, give them this. I'm there for the scum of the earth. Just like Jesus Christ, man. He loved the fucking prostitutes.
Yeah.
There's an entire chapter where he said that the clergy were hypocrites 8 times. They don't teach that in church.
Dude, that's what blows my mind about, like, to go on a little bit of a tangent with Jehovah Witnesses.
Right.
They straight up disown their family members if the family member was baptized in their religion and then leaves. They disown them completely, and they use verses from the Bible suggesting that out of context, but it says how that you don't want to sit down with someone that has or keep company with someone that is certain ways.
It's mind control. It's
Yeah,
it's mind control. Groupthink.
yeah,
Virtue signaling, as we call it today.
right. Yeah, but then you have what you just said, and it counters that completely. So it's like, yeah, craziness.
But yeah, I like to laugh because it reminds me that I didn't.
Mm.
And I'm cognizant of when I laugh. Therefore, I never laugh hysterically, which is part of my medication side effect.
So like you're aware that you're laughing. Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
I'm
That
not,
happens.
I
Right.
don't go there.
Yep. That
I
happens to
can't.
me.
I'm incapable of it with medication to keep myself
Yep.
from going there permanently.
Yeah. Well, so question for you. Um, do you feel there's some sort of filter for you? Like, fr- like when you're experiencing something, do you feel like there's the thing that's experiencing, and then there's like you here, and then there's like you're watching it type thing, like, or do you feel like you're just kind of firsthand experiencing it?
Good question.
Because it sounds like knowing the laughing like that for myself, that's kind of what it is. Like there's kind of like a barrier that I see things happening, and like I'm there, but I'm aware. I'm like hyper aware, and I'm observing everything at the same time. So I'm curious if maybe that's a similar thing for you now that you mentioned the laughing.
Can you see that?
Yeah,
What is that?
the the lenses.
Is it a pair of glasses?
Yeah.
This is to answer your question. Now, what is that?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Which direction is they facing?
Toward you.
Oh, they are? Which way are they facing now?
Toward me.
Okay, so the answer to your question is that it depends
Mm.
on whether you're the observer or the observed, metaphysically speaking. Your question is, do you separate yourself from the laughter, or are you within the experience, if I get what you're kind of saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
It just depends on whether you want the particle of light to be a particle. You must observe it. But if you do not observe the light, it becomes a wave. It doesn't even exist. So something doesn't exist until you look at it. That is reality. You can't say that something exists behind you because you don't see it.
Yeah.
That's power. So to answer your question, it's a very profound question. What I'm saying is that the question is so profound that it's a very powerful thing to be either observed or observant. I don't know, it sounds like a play on words or semantics. No, it's true power. Whoever is on top of the soapbox, aka Hitler, going, Heil Hitler, and everybody's going, Heil Hitler, he's got the power because everybody is going to the subject. And
Yeah.
he is the subjective power.
Right. Right.
Well, I don't want to be Hitler. Nobody wants to be Hitler, but to have power, you've got to, understand the difference between watching yourself laugh and being in laughter. If you're always within the laughter, if you're just going with the flow, and the word just is important. If you're just going with the flow, you have no rudder on your ship. And if you have a rudder on your ship, you can make it to your destination. And that rudder is the separation of observing your laughter. If you observe your laughter, you can take it to humor. And that works in movies too. If I don't observe it, then it just blah. It just goes wherever it wants. If I take a movie shot and it's 8 seconds long and it comes after a 2-second shot, it sucks because the timing wasn't off and I did not observe the 3 seconds.
Right.
So if you want to be powerful, you better start looking at things like yourself or your laughter.
Well said.
Thank you. It's a lot about what you said too. Like when I said write it down, a lot of times I tell my wife to write things down because of my short-term memory problems. I like what you had to say. I don't remember it all, but it had a lot to do with kind of what I was saying, if I recall.
Yeah.
Be your own person.
Well, and I think that it's interesting how sometimes something can be said, and what we get out of it is what's remembered for what was said, and which is okay. It's completely fine, right? It's the impact that matters, and it's the impact that's remembered. And so when we draw on that impact and try to tell you, what was said, well, we define and explain the impact. And so it's different words because we're defining the impact in our own words, but the impact's the same.
The carbon footprint.
Yeah.
For example, if I hear you correctly, for the last 30 years, people have been going to McDonald's and getting Happy Meal toys with their Happy Meals in Western society. And those Happy Meal toys were created on coal plants in China that have ruined the climate. So, who ruined the climate? Was it the coal plants or the consumers that bought the crap from the coal plants?
Right.
It's your perspective.
Yeah.
And that was in answer to what question, what statement that you had?
I don't remember.
I think your statement was
Oh, you mean in regarding the carbon
impact.
footprint? Yeah.
Footprint. I used the word carbon footprint, and then I went off on a tangent. But yeah, everybody does have an impact, and whether they're buying the Happy Meal from the coal plant or in the coal plant creating the Happy Meal toy, they're all making an impact.
Right. Yeah.
For future generations to come. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad it hasn't cut out, because we had that satellite problem.
Yeah, not for now.
So what else do you want to talk about before we go?
I appreciate you having this conversation.
Yeah, I really got into it there at the end about observers and observance.
Yeah, that's something I'm going to have to put more thought into because I've always seen it.
Read Plato.
Oh, yeah. That's,
And then throw it in the trash can. But understand it.
Right. Well, and that's, I think a lot of those philosophers. I have Meditations, the book Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and I've read about a fourth of it, and at the time it meant a lot, and more I learn, the less it means. Like it's still a good book, and from everything that I did
Right.
read, like it definitely matters. Um, but I don't think that stoicism,
Like a lot of things Freud came up with were really, really, really good,
right?
but you know, the guy was kind of a lunatic.
There, yeah, you have to everything with a grain of salt. Like there's wisdom to be taken, but the
Right.
words again, like impact, right? Like there's an impact
Right.
that it will have, and it can be a positive impact. But the specific details very well might be not correct, but it doesn't really matter because the impact remains.
I think we see eye to eye on that, man.
Yep, I think so.
Pass the bowl, dude. Don't bogey that.
It's been a little
Wouldn't that
bit.
be fun if we're like sitting in and like together, like give each other a hug, you know?
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the dream with
I
this.
owe you a poetry book.
Yes. Yeah, I'll send you my address.
Okay, and then you send me. Well, I've seen pictures of you um, on our Facebook friends, but you just keep smiling and make that video game.
Will do. I can even, if you want, we can sit down sometime and I can show it to you. I'll share my
I would love
screen.
to give you some input and not input necessarily, but you know, my reflection of it.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Super cool. I want to. I'm working on getting it to a point where I can start posting short videos of it on Twitter and just kind of start an update, like a dev blog type thing. And but I'm waiting until I get it to a point that it feels and looks like an actual game and not just a play test.
I trust me, you're very smart, very creative. I've read your words. If it's anything like your words, hey, if anybody's out there listening to this podcast, read his words. You put together some good sentences, man.
Thank you.
Poetry.
Thank you.
Stuff
Eventually,
that makes me think.
I'd like to compile and do similar. Like when I saw you have a book like that, that's something that I've considered
You're
doing.
like,
So it's like,
cool book.
yeah, yeah, that's
They're
really
all
cool.
dated. Here, I'll tell you one.
Let's hear it.
You want to hear the 4th grade story, and we could end on that.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, table of contents. Can you read that?
Yep. It's
Every
backwards,
book
but-
must have a table of contents. It's part of having a book. This one's called the creature feature. Yeah, you're gonna get one of these. Everybody's gonna want one. I'm gonna sell million motherfucking copies.
Yeah, maybe
Okay,
in a couple of
it's got
years
3
when I have
chapters.
some views.
What?
I said maybe in a couple of years when I have some views.
Oh, you're gonna have views, man. Trust me. Chapter 1. 4th grade. I kept it. It's called the creature feature. When I read it to the classroom, I just run a motorcycle into a chain link fence and ripped my chin open.
Oh,
So
man.
there was a big thing on my chin, but I had to read it to the class. And everybody was laughing so hard that I was laughing. And every time I laughed, it hurt my chin.
Ah, man. That's wild.
Are you ready?
I am. Let's hear it.
All right. I might laugh. Now look out. Chapter 1. I'm Clorox. I come from outer space, and I just came home from the cafe. Right now, I'm traveling in my one and only magic button car. Good start. It was on sale for 400 buckaroos. I'm parking my new car now. Hey, well, what do you know? My old friend Detergent 2. Clorox, have I got bad news for you? Bad news? What do you mean bad news? Clorox, human beings are going to invade our planet Biz. Chapter 2. Does everybody know about this? Well, I don't think so. Then let's tell everybody. Tell the Army. Tell the Air Force. All right, but I'm going to tell the governor first. So Detergent 2 told the governor. The governor told the president, Mr. Right Guard. And Mr. Right Guard told the Air Force and the Army to be alert at any second. Chapter 3, the final act. Then they struck. What a horrible fate. First, the president told 3 planes to lift, called Cascade, Occidental, and Tide. First Tide went down. It was a good fight for Occidental, but he went down with his ship. But Cascade couldn't bear it, so he went back to base. Then there were 3 ships again, Dial, Irish Spring, and Cascade. It took a lot to bring Dial and Cascade down, but they did it. But they couldn't get Irish Spring because he was as clean as a whistle. Then it was Irish Spring, Ban, and All. First Ban, then Irish Spring's whistle wore out, but the other one gave it his all. And the Biz Planet won the war, 1982. Signing off. I got you a book, man. That's the first. And I was in 4th grade when I wrote that. It only gets better.
That's pretty cool.